Anybody else? Yes.
Yeah, I got a question. Is that the greatest movie you ever saw, or what?
It is. It's my favorite movie of all time. Yeah, that's for sure.
Man, he's got good taste.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Getting the license in '87 and the right matter and the cartoon coming out at the same time. How much influence did the animated series have to the film?
Wilmington, North Carolina, at what are now known as the Screen Gem Studios. They were originally built by Dino De Laurentiis. And the reason why we shot in North Carolina was because of Jim Henson. Jim was the guy who created all the costumes, as you probably know. He and his son Brian, who was 25 at the time, made those costumes in the Creature Shop in London. And when they came here to the U.S. and started doing their work, Jim insisted Jim was traveling between London, New York, and Orlando. And Jim's last public appearance before he passed in May of 1990 was at the premiere of this film at this very theater. Not this theater, but in this complex on March 30th, 1990. And Jim was kind enough to attend the screening and be part of that celebration, or that celebration, as the case may be. Anyway, enjoy the picture. I'll do some Q&A after the picture, after the movie, and hope you have a good time. Cowabunga. They had worked together on Dark Crystal, which Brian had also worked on, and I think they were 19 or 20 at the time. And Steve and Brian became good friends. And when they heard about the Turtles, they got fascinated. They wanted to do it. But Jim was kind of resistant, and it took Brian and Steve working on Jim to finally admit, because when I talked to him, he said, I don't like it. But he changed his mind, because he got the humor that's in the film, and also the sort of teen angst that comes out through it too as well. So, anybody else? Yes.
Did you have a favorite maybe scene or part of the movie that you just liked, the filming part of it?
Well, I'll be honest with you. My favorite scene in the film is when Rafi meets Casey Jones, because I think it's sort of like Raphael's sort of the outcast and the guy who's always surly and all that. And I think that scene sort of plays off because Elias Koteas, who plays Casey Jones, was he's a very quiet man, very shy, kind of like this. But in that scene, he comes out of it, right? So I kind of loved it. Yeah. That and the stuff at the farmhouse. I love the farmhouse scenes because it's very, contemplative, kind of throwback. Yeah. So. Hi, how you doing?
What's your name?
My name's Kim.
Kim.
Boy named Sue. Yeah.
Reading Moses.
I produced the film.
You're the producer.
Yeah. I was fortunate enough to acquire the rights early on. So we've got some new fans here today. I see some new Turtle fans. That's good. Got to create a new generation of them. Oh, look at you. All right. Yes, sir.
I heard you mention a little earlier that you got feedback really early about how well it was doing, what that was feeling like. Was it like that through the whole couple weekends? Were you feeling the momentum from the press and from the public?
Yeah, when this film first opened on March 30th, 1990, it was competing against Masters of the Universe, but primarily against Pretty Woman. Pretty Woman had been released the week before, and we went back and forth at the box office, #1 and #2, for almost 12 weeks, almost 3 months into June of that year. And we had an ad campaign going on in Los Angeles that was where they were saying, Disney was saying, go see, if you can't see Pretty Woman, go see Turtles, and if you can't see Turtles, go see Pretty Woman. And we did the same thing in the LA Times and all that. It was pretty much fun, particularly since Disney was the first person who said no to me when I pitched the idea. So we got nothing but no's, actually, until I met Tom Gray from Golden Harvest. And Tom said, I get the idea that you don't need to hire real expensive actors to be in the suits, We could probably shoot it all in Hong Kong where they had facilities. They made all the Bruce Lee movies back in the day. And but then when Jim came on board, Jim insisted that we set the film on the East Coast of the U.S. so he could be supervising the costumes, and that was sort of the critical factor that kept us in. But yeah, once we released on a Friday, and by 8 o'clock that night, I knew that we were going to do about $20 million at the box office. It ended up at about $25 million at the box office. And the movie ultimately grossed about $133 million at the U.S. box office. And it's still, with adjustment for inflation, still the three movies are the most successful independent features of all time. Most movies don't get made today. The Turtles are now owned by Paramount, so the chances of us making an independent picture again are slim. But Paramount, I think, likes the idea of a throwback, so we'll see. But anyway, enjoy the picture. I think it's about to start, and I appreciate your all being here. I'll stop by afterwards. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yes, in back.
What did you say your name was again?
Tim Dawson.
Tim Dawson?
Yes.
Tim Dawson. So, nice to see you.
Good. I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you another question. So you said you're one of the film producers.
That's right.
How many months did it take to do this movie?
Well, it took about, we started prep in the middle of 1988. We shot in July of 1989. The script was started in December of '88 and was completed about 2 months before the picture was finished, or was started rather. But the irony of the deal that we made, originally the movie was supposed to be distributed by 20th Century Fox, and when that leadership at 20th Century Fox took over, a guy named Barry Diller took over. You may know him from Hotels.com. He was one of the first movie executives to embrace the whole world of the internet. Anyway, he canceled the Turtles, and we had to scramble to get a U.S. distributor, and we ended up with New Line, who didn't pay anything for the movie. It's what's known as a negative pickup. They just put $2 million in P&A, and then in prints and advertising money, and that led to a deal that we made. You saw up there Surge Licensing, Mark and Renee Friedman. They're the genius couple behind all the licensing that happened with Turtles. When I first got the rights to Turtles in the late '88 or late '87 rather, they had one license. When the movie released 2.5 years later, they had 800 licenses. For everything from T-shirts to books to you name it. There's still a lot of licenses out there. Anybody else? Yes.
Yeah, I got a question. Is that the greatest movie you ever saw, or what?
It is. It's my favorite movie of all time. Yeah, that's for sure.
Man, he's got good taste.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Getting the license in '87 and the right matter and the cartoon coming out at the same time, how much influence did the animated series have to the film production versus the comic book?
Well, I think the first 5 episodes that were done by Murakami and Wolf, it was actually paid for by the toy company as a promotion for the toys. They released it in Christmas of '88, bridging into '89, or Christmas of '87, bridging into '88. And in February of '88 is when the toy fair took place in New York City at the Javits Center, and it blew the manhole cover up and had steam come out, and that created an event that nobody had ever seen before. That made the Turtles super popular. And when we were pitching, we had some of the original toys, the press kit for the toys, and those cartoons, and it did influence ultimately how we got the movie made. But at the time, they were completely separate. But just building the brand was what it was all about. Yes, sir.
So my question is kind of similar. So this is based largely on the first 1 of the first few of the Mirage and the Return to the Jordan storyline, pretty much.
Yes.
How did you, how did you come up with the story? How did you, how did you come up with the story? How did you, how did you how did you take the darker tone into the second movie? Because that was a lot lighter. So was there like a conversation with that?
It was. The question was whether or not the film, whether it was intentional to make the first film darker as opposed to the second film, which was lighter. There are a couple of answers to the question. One is that Steve Barron's vision of the film was much more aligned with the original comics, which were much darker, much more, hardcore, if you will. But the audiences that we were going after, which were young people for the most part, and then the college age kids. The college age kids we were collecting comics. We knew that they would probably show up, and they did for the late night movies. But they also brought in their Ralston Purina cereal, turtle cereal, with the 2-for-1 discount coupon. So a lot of kids and college kids made it 2 or 3 times to the film. But the intention was to soften a little bit with regard to some of the humor. The humor was in the comics, but this storyline was really an amalgam about the first 4 comics that were issued. The stories kind of blended together. But Steve's idea was to make it even darker, and there's a reason why that didn't happen. But the second film, the first film, let me back up. The first film, Steve Barron, the director, and Todd Langdon, who rewrote the script from Bobby Herbeck's original draft, was one that was particularly dark, and it got softened a little bit as they built more humor into it. But they did that whole script themselves, just Steve and Todd. They finished it, and that's what actually got shot. The second film, The Secret of the Use, was more of a compilation of New Line wanted to have a say, the toy company wanted to have a say, the studio executive, everybody. There were 10 people around the room making comments to Todd to tell him what to do, and that's why it ended up. There was also pushback from various markets, Japan, England, Holland, of all places, that didn't like the violence in the first film. That's no longer a concern in today's world, apparently, but back then it was. As a matter of fact, in London and in Japan, it was called Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles, not Ninja Turtles. In Japan, ninjas are not used unless it's I guess, blessed by somebody in the world of martial arts, and we didn't get that lesson. And the Europeans, or the English in particular, pushed back against ninja because they thought it was too violent at the time. So, I hope that answered your question.
That was great.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Just curious about any story behind using Corey Feldman or Ernie Reyes Jr., who was a stunt performer in the first one, actor in the second,
Yes.
and then not using Judith Hogue and going to Paige Turco as April in the second.
Yeah, to answer the question about Judith and Paige, it was just a contract issue. Judith wanted to be paid more money. She thought the movie had been lifted with her presence, and she had a reason to believe so. But she had a contract, and that was they didn't want to honor it, so they moved on to Paige. The first part of the question, with regard to Corey Feldman, that was intentional because of his popularity at the time as a voice. And we came in and revoiced it. You notice that the only person who actually acted in the movie was Josh Payas. Josh also did the voice for his in the voiceover, but that was also intentional. The idea was to cast voices of somewhat better known celebrities, if you will, to have some marquee, I guess. Anybody else? Yes, sir, in the back.
I have another question. At this time when this movie came out, there was already an animated series that was on air. What made you all want to do this movie when there was already an animated series that was on air?
Well, we only had the right to do the live action movie, and we always thought that the live action was going to be more fun to do than an animated picture. So the Mirage had already licensed the animated rights to the toy company Playmates, which hired Murakami and Wolf to do those original 5 comics, or cartoons rather. But we felt the live action would play to a different audience, and it did, as it turns out. But we were told no by literally everybody, not just Disney, Sony, Paramount, Universal, everybody told us no, including the guys who had made Three Ninjas, Jerry Weintraub, because he didn't think it would work either. And it wasn't until Tom Gray came along with Golden Harvest where he said, I can do this for a price. And they originally thought they were going to do it in Hong Kong, like I mentioned, but they ended up in North Carolina. The budget for the film was $8.5 million. Originally, that was the plan. It ended up at $10.5 million, primarily because of the costumes breaking down.
They probably wanted the merchandise as long as they.
Yeah. There was a lot of merchandise going on at the same time. It wasn't part of the film. The Mirage guys have had a pretty robust merchandising plan in place. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I asked before, but I wanted to ask again. What's the chances of them redoing a new movie with similar costumes and turtle designs?
I think using today's technology, I know Brian's interested and would like to do it. It's just a matter of, right now, the first three movies, which were done with Warner Brothers, Time Warner, they own the rights to those three movies. So there's some conflict between who gets to do a sequel to the first film, because that's what Steve Barron would like to do, is a sequel to the first film, not the Ooze, not anything else, but a real follow-up to that first film. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Sorry.
Who's your favorite turtle and why?
Well, I'm wearing Mikey. And Mikey I love primarily because of my partner, Gary Proper, rest his soul. Gary was a lifelong surfer, grew up in Cocoa Beach, and he turned me on to the turtles. He managed a comedian by the name of Gallagher, so you know, from Smashing Watermelons. And when he was in Detroit, I was producing all the Gallagher specials for Showtime at the time. And Gary was in Detroit playing at the Fox Theater with Gallagher. And he went down the street to Midnight Comics, and that's where he found the comic in the fall of '87. And then he called me and said, dude, you got to check this out. It's the most bitchin' thing I've ever seen. I went, what are you talking about? He says, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I said, dude, you've been smoking it too much. You're a Paco Lolo, baby. But then he sent me the comics overnight, and I got them, and I saw immediately what he was talking about. That they had this character about them. There was something about the Turtles that was different than anything else that had ever been done. And it's really tongue-in-cheek. I mean, I have to give it back to Peter and Kevin, because they're genius about creating the characters, but really, falling into this idea that Renaissance artists could have some kind of presence in today's world is pretty cool. As a matter of fact, one of the projects I hope to do, because I'm doing a lot of work on the virtual side of things with that, and what would happen with the turtles is we'd make the real costumes and then we scan them and make them into objects that you can manipulate. So we'd probably do it two ways, probably with real costumes and then CGI costumes would look like real costumes, but they'd look like these. That's the idea. But we'll see. It's a long way. This film business is a little bit upside down right now because of what's happening with streaming and so forth. But it's a big enough franchise that hopefully somebody will see the value of doing this. We're working on a Casey Jones project right now, actually, a spinoff, and I'm also working on a what would be a really cool thing. The Turtles take you to Italy and take you through all their artwork. So Donatello would be showing you his, Raphael would be doing his artwork, Leonardo would do his whole thing, and of course Michelangelo would be painting the Sistine Chapel. But the idea would be that we could, because using those manipulated characters, we could take them through a virtual tour of art history, if you will. The Renaissance is still the most creative period in human history, I think. The technology era notwithstanding right now. But 1 minute? Okay. One more question. Well, thank you for coming. I'm glad you're Turtle fans. Yes, sir.
Okay. There have been other adaptations on these turtles. After the Sammy series, this film, you had one in the 2000s, you had one by Nickelodeon in 2012, there were these other movies. There was one, Michael Bay did, there was one one Seth Rogen was involved.
Right.
What were your thoughts on these other adaptations, including these other films, compared to this one?
I like the Seth Rogen picture some because I thought it was what I liked about it is they blended all the characters. They brought all the characters back and made them kind of work together. I thought that was kind of clever. The animation was different. It was that 2D, 3D sort of thing that they did with Spider-Verse that I sort of liked. The Michael Bay pictures I was not crazy about because they changed the characters altogether. They didn't look like turtles. You know, that's never been done before in superhero
Yeah, I
world.
like how they did the Charles and that. I think it was a little less than that.
Well, thanks for coming. Appreciate you guys.